Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back. It's that time of week again. So we power rankings. We're now past the trade deadline, so it's our post-trade deadline edition. Hopefully, everyone's as excited as I am for that. There's quite a few changes in each of the areas. Of course, we've got the bottom, where it's the teams out of it, the middle, teams out of it or fighting for that last spot, and then the top row, playoff teams, World Series contenders, fun stuff like that. Before I get started, I just want to give everyone a chance. Please go down there, join the community, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button if you like seeing these. They come out every single week, so I update these every week on Sunday after the late night game. And lastly, we started a Discord channel, so if you want to keep talking baseball with people on the channel, we are talking about that, and I'll have that in the description below. Other than that, let's get things started with a repeat number 30. We're keeping them there. The Texas Rangers 1-1 against Arizona. They did go 2-1 against Seattle over the weekend, but it took 2 9-inning comebacks to get there. Post All-Star break, still only have 3 wins since the All-Star break. They were 0-10 going into this week. So number 30, I think, pretty good spot for the Texas Rangers. Number 29, we got the Diamondbacks 1-1 against Texas, and then they went 1-2 against the Dodgers. Same kind of story, like they're having a poor year. They've had setting records with away road losses, but at the same time, I do like them better than the Rangers in the long term right now. The rotation, to me, is a lot better. Number 28, we got the Colorado Rockies. They went 1-2 against the Angels. And then 2-2 against the Padres. A good weekend against the Padres, but overall, I think they're quite disappointed with how the trade deadline went for them. Didn't really get rid of some of the guys you suspected them to. Overall in this West, I think they're setting themselves up for a long rebuild. So 28, I think, is pretty nice for them right now. Long rebuild ahead of them. Number 27, moving up a little bit because they had a good start of the week. They went 3-1 against the White Sox. So a little bit of credit going to the Royals. The rotation starting to come back to form a little bit. Couldn't get much worse than what they were doing. But then they come into Toronto, changing countries and losing 0-3 to them. So a little bit rough there. I think when you're up against tough teams, they come to compete on most days, but some of these teams ahead of them they lost to recently. So I have them sitting at number 27. Number 26, got the Baltimore Orioles. They've been somewhat consistent, 1-1 against Miami, and then 2-2 against Detroit over the weekend. So overall 500, and since the All-Star break, they've been all right. They've won some series against the Royals, for instance, to move up the board. I think on a given day, they're playing pretty hard, and I would take them over any of the teams below them, assuming things match up pretty well. Number 25, we got the Minnesota Twins. They went 1-2 against Detroit, 1-2 against St. Louis, and they sold a lot at the trade deadline. I think it's only going downhill from here. At the very least, they did get a lot of return for some of their players, so they're setting themselves up for a pretty quick rebuild, I would think. Austin Martin, a good piece that they added, obviously trading off Barrios, but 25 might be the lowest the Twins have been, and I believe they come up with the Orioles soon. They might play them soon. We'll see how that goes. Number 24. We got the Pittsburgh Pirates. They got out of the bottom row after getting swept by the Brewers early in the week. They went 2-1 against the Phillies. Playing good, spoiler, Pennsylvania battle. I think I'd be a little excited at that. They made some trades, of course, at the trade deadline, getting rid of Fraser, giving it Tyler Anderson, getting some things in back in return. They're starting to be on the trend up, though, as an organization, I hope. Of course, the Pirates have been in the bottom for quite a while now, so it's about time that they start turning things around. I think they're in the right trajectory. They're at least, some of these teams are heading down, whereas the Pirates at least floating and going up. So I think 24 is pretty nice increase for them. Number 23, we got the Chicago Cubs 1-3 against Cincinnati this week, and then 1-2 against Washington over the weekend. Cubs, obviously, everyone knows they sold everybody basically at the trade deadline. Gonna probably go down from here. They had a good point at the season when they were up very high. They had a big win streak. They were first in the division, and then things just fell off the tracks, and they've slowly fallen off. And I think we're at that point now where they've given up trading everything off, bringing in some assets. But it remains to be seen how their future is going to look, whether or not they're going to be able to pull off a good rebuild or whatnot. I think the free agency is going to speak a lot to that coming up in the offseason. Number 22, we got the Miami Marlins. 1-1 against Baltimore, and then they got swept by the Yankees over the weekend. They were kind of one of those teams, too, that they didn't have a great week, but I didn't hold it too much against them because I think they had a good trade deadline, bringing in a lot of assets, and they have the rotations and the future that could possibly be coming to them. That's going to be nice for sure. Brings us to number 21. We got the Washington Nationals, 2-2 against Philly, 2-1 against the Cubs. Of course, they sold as well, very much as the Cubs. They beat the Cubs over the weekend. They played spoiler against the Phillies, but that was before they started. But at the very least, they do have a couple of core pieces that I think put them in a better position, at least in the next couple of years, to really compete still. I don't really hold them as low as these other teams. Number 20. Same spot as last week, I believe. We got the Tigers, 2-1 against Minnesota, and then 2-2 against Baltimore. It was a good series against Baltimore, back and forth. And this is kind of like where there's like kind of a line here, because the teams after this is probably a pretty big step forward to come out of the bottom 10 to start moving up. Tigers, of course, have made some pretty good steps forward. They got a rotation that's starting to come together, and their young guys are really starting to come up too. So look for the Tigers to make some steps forward. Maybe not in the power rankings the rest of the year per se, but going into next year, I think they're trending in that direction for sure. Number 19, they're not going to be too happy with this. 2-1 against Colorado, and then a rough series against Oakland over the weekend where they went 1-3. They want to make up some ground on Oakland. They really missed an opportunity. The Angels are below 500. They're just not getting in the way, and they traded away some guys at the deadline thinking that kind of giving up with Heaney going out. We suspect the Angels probably calling it a season at this point. Number 18. We got the Cleveland Indians, 1-1 against St. Louis, and then 1-2 against the White Sox over the weekend. So they lost that series. Not a whole lot going positively for the Indians this season. Pretty much not else to say. They were kind of hovering around the playoff for the most part. They've slowly fallen down as other teams heated up, and they just remained around 500. They're like 8 games back of a division playoff spot. So I think at this point they have a chance, but of course they're a long way to go. Number 17, we got the St. Louis Cardinals, 1-1 against Cleveland, and then 2-1 against Minnesota over the weekend. They got a big beat down by Minnesota in one game, but they bounced back. They're around 500 as well, and so far this season has been quite a disappointment for St. Louis. Pretty much it. 16. Got the Atlanta Braves, 2-1 against the Mets and 1-2 against the Brewers. Both these teams they're playing against were playoff teams. The Mets obviously was a series that's very important to them, and they won that. And the Mets, they got a lot of guys on their tail. 16, they're in the hunt still. But they really need to turn it around because they are a team that hasn't been able to break through that 500 barrier as well. That brings us to number 15, same division. Philadelphia Phillies, 2-2 against Washington, and then losing to the Pirates really hurt them this week. They're trying to make up ground again. They're in a division that's still wide open between them and the Mets, but they just can't be losing these series like to the Pirates. They at the very least made up some wins against Washington, but again, 500. They need to be winning some of these against these lower teams. Otherwise, they're just going to be forever 500, and 500 is not going to get you into the postseason. 14, falling down a little bit this week. We got the Mariners, 1-2 against Houston, 1-2 against Texas. They had a very good chance to make a run into the top 10 this week, but losing back-to-back games now to Texas in the 9th inning, just falling apart. There's a lot of controversy with their trade deadline, too, with the whole Graveman thing, and now Castillo comes in, blows his first save, and then they blow another 9th inning game. And Graveman supposedly is a leader of the locker room, so a lot of concern. They're right there in the wild card hunt, but they're probably, in my mind, the weakest team in the wild card hunt, the longest shot to be able to make that wild card. 14, though. Don't count them out, that's for sure. Number 13, moving up a little bit, we got Toronto Blue Jays, 2-2 against Boston, and then they swept the Royals over the weekend. Of all the teams out there, they've had one of the most successful trade deadlines, bringing in Berrios. They addressed all their issues, really. They brought in 4 bullpen arms over the past month. They brought in Berrios, of course, to address their starting pitching, and as we know, their offense is elite, leading the league right now in home runs. What can you say? They're going to be right there in the hunt to the end now that they've addressed some of their weaknesses. Number 13. Number 12. But Cincinnati Reds, 3-1 against the Cubs, 2-1 against the Mets. They had a very good chance to beat the Mets in the one loss they could have swept the Mets. The only issue with them is, of course, they have the Brewers, who are very strong in their division. They're quite a few games back. It might even be easier for the Reds to have a shot at the wild card. But overall, I think they're having a good season, and we can't discount the effort they put through. Some of their starters had rough starts to the season. They've been really up and down, up and down. But in baseball, if you end the season on a heater, it's all it can take, and that's what right now the Reds are trying to do. Number 11, we got the New York Mets, 1-2 against Atlanta, 1-2 against Cincinnati. Still leading their division, of course, but not a good week. And if they keep having weeks like this, they'll find themselves right here battling with Philly and Atlanta before we know it. A lot of injuries. Starting rotation just hasn't been able to do the same thing without DeGrom in there. Of course, that's a big, big problem going forward. Number 10. Moving up, we got the New York Yankees. They're chipping away at this 2-1 against the Rays, which was a big series, and then they swept the Marlins over the weekend. They made a lot of additions too at the trade deadline. Rizzo, Gallo, bringing in Heaney as a starting pitcher. They're not giving up. They're definitely in the hunt. They're ahead of the Jays a little bit. Mind you, the Jays have beat them on most days, but these are two new teams now. So when they finally meet up again, it'll be a true telling of who's really fighting for that last wild card spot. Who belongs to right now, number 9. The Oakland A's. We got a bunch of teams chasing the A's. They went 1-1 against the Padres, 3-1 against the Angels. So they're continuing to at least show they deserve that spot, at least for now. But got a lot of teams on their tail. We got Yankees, Jays, Mariners, all 2.5, 3.5 games back. So the A's got to keep playing like this to maintain that spot in playoff contention. Number 8. We got San Diego Padres, 1-1. And 2-2 against Colorado. Padres, a lot of concern. For me, especially, they had that last wild card spot, but Tatis is now questionable 10-day DL, potentially could be out for the season. And if that's the case, we could see the end of the Padres in the playoff spot as we know it. The West has always been a tough division for them, and their pitching just has not been performing the way they expected at the beginning of the season, at least for the last little while. Still top team, of course. Still got lineup 1 through 9 that's very strong. Rotation's still better than the average, but they're definitely not performing what most people would have expected at this point. Number 7, the Chicago White Sox, 1-3 against KC before winning over the weekend against Cleveland. A little bit of concern going on with that series with Kansas City, and last week they didn't perform super well. So since the All-Star break, there's a little bit of concern. They haven't been amazing. Of course, they have the division on lockdown at this point. So playoff spot not really in jeopardy. So that definitely plays into them being a higher rank because they're going to make the playoffs. Rotation's been pretty good. There's been a lot of rough patches lately, but number 7 I think is pretty fair considering all that's going on in the American League. Bringing in number 6, we got Boston, 2-2 against Toronto, and then getting swept by Tampa. Really hurts this weekend. They've been dethroned from the top of the division. Past month has not been Boston's top friend, but we did have them a lot higher. They're slowly starting to fall. And if they have another bad week like the past couple, then we could see them fall even further. But for now, we got to have a little faith that they'll turn it around. This offense is super strong. They're bringing back Chris Sale soon. And we know Evaldi and them have the potential to carry the load, at least when Sale's not around. So, number 5, moving up, we got the Brewers. 3-0 against Pirates, 2-1 against Atlanta. They continue to just move up in their division and win in each series. Every series they seem to be winning lately. And the Brewers got to be pretty excited. They addressed another one of those teams that addressed their weaknesses with the offense. Going in the trade deadline, bringing in Escobar, a pretty big deal. So Brewers got to be pretty excited. Of course, there's a lot of teams ahead of them that are having solid season. Brewers had a little bit of a stretch where they weren't amazing, and they had that 13-game win streak, or however long it was, that really boosted them as well. They got a nice lead in the division. I think 5's a pretty nice spot for the Brewers. Number 4, got Tampa Bay Rays, 1-2 against the Yankees, which was a little bit concerning, but then they bounced back immediately with a sweep of the Red Sox. Rays have just been consistent all season long. Had a long streak in there, and then playing 600 ball. I think if it wasn't for Glass now, they'd probably be a top 2 team without him going down, but they did have to fill the hole. They traded away some other guys, but Wander Franco's starting to fill in pretty well for his team. Offense continues to get it done for them. So big series win, and 4th for the Rays. Number 3, the Los Angeles Dodgers. They lost to the Giants early in the week. But between the Giants, I think they're exactly 500 on the season against each other. If you add up all their runs against their games against each other, they're exactly even again. But it seems as of late, the Giants have had their numbers. So they also lost the first game against Arizona before coming in and smashing them the next 2 games. A lot of question marks. They obviously brought in Trey Turner and Max Scherzer at the trade deadline, so a lot of excitement around that. I think number 3 is for now. We can see them moving up. They're playing number 2 early this week. We got the Houston Astros 2-1 against Seattle. Then lost to San Francisco over the weekend, and that was one of the best series we've watched in a long time. Back and forth the whole series. Could have went either way, and that's probably why I have San Francisco number 1. Because how can I not? They're back to number 1. They beat number 2 this week. They beat number 3 this week. They're the best record in the MLB. What else can I say at this point? San Francisco's got to be number 1. As much as we're all shocked by the way they're performing, they're second in the league in home runs behind the Toronto Blue Jays, which, gotta give them credit. Offense is there, pitching's been there. They're winning the series that they have to win. So there you have it. Let me know what you guys think about the power rankings, who you would have, and where. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more content. We've got plenty more coming. We still got 2 months of baseball left before we get to playoffs. So we hope you'll join, and we'll see you around for the next video. Thanks for watching.